Okay, we're here with another episode, I guess, of Revenue Cloud Office Hours. Today's question, we're starting with the numbering of the features and the product options. Faye had asked why we number in increments of 10. This is what was recommended from her consultants. This is what I recommend to all of my clients, is that we number in increments of 10. And there's a reason for this. The number here plays a role in the sequence in which we see things visually when we're editing our quotes. If I go to the quote that I started building last week, edit lines, boy, it's slow today.
Yeah, maybe Salesforce.
Right. All right. If we look through these options, we see that they're in a very specific order. The number field is what determines that order. 20 is bigger than 10, and they display in ascending order as we see it in the UI. You'll also notice, though, that I'm using 10 multiple times, I'm using 20 multiple times, and even though my sequence, as I'm looking at it visually here, I see grape jelly and strawberry jelly. When we go over to here, I see strawberry jelly, then grape jelly. And that's because the number field of the product option is driving that behavior. You may then ask yourself, well, that's fine. 20 is bigger than 10, so 20 is going to be further down the list. But if you're using the number 10 3 times, how does CPQ know the order that they should show? Why are they in this order and not a random order each time? And the answer to that is because we use a similar function on the product feature. Bread comes first because it's 10, then we have 20, then we have 30. First, when the UI loads, CPQ says, okay, bread is 10, butter is 20, jelly is 30, and it puts the product feature records in that order. And then within that framework, we have 10, 20, 10, 20, 10, 20. You could number these however you want. You may choose to use a different naming convention. Perhaps you use a 100 series or 200 series, 300 series, maybe use 1,000, increments of 1,000. Why are we using increments of 10 anyway? Why don't we just use 1, 2, 3? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, same thing, right? The reason is that I sometimes want to insert an option in between, and I'm lazy. I don't want to have to renumber everything if I want to insert something else. I just want to put that in there. So this gives us 9 additional options that could fit sequentially between white bread and wheat bread, because I can go 11, 12, and so on, and then 20 through 29. If you used increments of 100, then you would have 99 options that could fit inside between the first row and the second row if you needed to insert some in, and so on. But if you start getting to the point where you have over 100 product options, we need to have a much deeper conversation about the architecture of your bundles. But that's the short reason why, or the short version of why we need to number it all, how the numbers work, both on the feature, on the options, and how the two work together. Does that help?
Yes. One question though, like ours is dealing with cameras, right? That's D210, D215, D2, 20.
Sure.
So it goes in that increment. Now, every time I have to input the child child product into the bundle, do I put in, like, say, for instance, I have like 3 products, right? And I don't think they really care much about in orders. So what I was told was, okay, today you're entering 3 product to the bundle. So you just put in as in numbering them as all 20. Would that make sense?
It's not, I would say no, because if they're all the same number, then we really don't have control over how they're going to display. If there's no preference for the business, let's say the business doesn't care in which order these product options show or in which order these features show, I'll just make an executive decision. I pick one. I pick what I think makes sense. I leave it at that. Because we want to be clear with CPQ. CPQ or any of our business processes and configurations, they're easily confused. We want to be as clear with the tool as possible, almost as if CPQ was a 3-year-old and we had to make sure that there were clear rules so that the 3-year-old didn't get into trouble, didn't get into in danger, things like this. We're doing the same thing with CPQ. We want to be very specific and prescriptive about every value that we're entering so that the product and the platform behaves as we expect. If you end up with solution designs that are unpredictable, unpredictability is going to lead to frustration among the end users. And frustration leads to emails and Slack messages and cases and all this other stuff that as administrators, we don't want to have to deal with if we don't have to. So if the business doesn't have a preference, that's fine. I'll make a preference and then I'll implement it my way. I do that quite often with clients. I'm working with a client right now where for some decisions, they just tell me, you know what, John, you just decide. I don't care. Pick something that makes sense and I'll just trust you, which is what I love because I like to exercise my creative side and do things my way. And they seem to like my way. So they've gotten to the point now where they go, yeah, I trust you. Just do what you think is best. All right, cool. I was going to do that anyway and then seek your approval after the fact. But now that I got your green light ahead of time, even better. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's very clear. And what about the maximum options and minimum options? Actually clearly says that, okay, they have to choose at least one in the min options. And the max option is like, that's all they can choose from is only one.
Let's use peanut butter as an example for this one. I have 2 different types of peanut butter, crunchy and creamy. I have 2 product options representing that peanut butter inside of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But let's just say, for the sake of example, I give my customer the choice. You can have 1 scoop of peanut butter, or you can have 2 scoops of peanut butter. That's where minimum and maximum quantities start to come in. Or, I'm sorry, did you say minimum or maximum quantities or maximum options?
Quantities.
Quantity, okay. Because there's minimum, maximum options on the product feature, which we can also talk about. But let's go with this. In this scenario, I have established a default starting quantity for this product option. If I choose the peanut butter and jelly sandwich inside of the bundle, the quantity is automatically set to 1. But the business came back to us and said, just kidding, we want this to be editable and we want the user to have the ability to choose 1 or 2 scoops of peanut butter. Right now, the configuration is set up to be non-editable quantity. Quantity editable is false. And it's set to 1. That was fine when we started, but as you know, when users start to use products, they get all sorts of ideas on how they want to sell, and they get really creative. Maybe it's somebody like myself. I like a lot of stuff inside my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, so I'm going to double down on my peanut butter. To do this, we need to set the parameters of what is allowed and what is not allowed. In this case, I will allow and require a minimum of 1 scoop. If you choose the peanut butter, the crunchy peanut butter, then you must have at least 1 scoop. But you can have multiple scoops if you want, but at most, you can have 2 scoops of peanut butter. But we're not done yet. I have a default quantity, a minimum quantity, and a maximum quantity. I'm saying that most of the time, customers want 1 scoop of peanut butter. So I'll make things easier on the rep. The thing they do the most, I'll configure automatically. You must have 1 scoop at a minimum if you select crunchy peanut butter, but at most you can have 2 scoops of peanut butter. I still need to check quantity editable though, because without this, it doesn't matter if I have minimum or maximum quantities because the user cannot change them anyway. We have to think about this from those multiple angles then. Should the user be able to edit what is the default quantity for this product if the product is selected as an option? If the product is selected as an option, is the quantity of that product option editable? If the quantity is editable, what quantity at a minimum must the user select? Or what quantity at a minimum must the user enter? And what quantity at a maximum must the user enter? Now, maybe you say you can have infinite scoops of peanut butter. Fine. Maximum quantity is null. That means you can put whatever quantity you want, which doesn't make any sense if you think about it, because I'm not going to put a whole jar of peanut butter on 1 sandwich. It's not going to work very well. So that's the configuration I'll choose for this. I'll make the same choice with my other product option as well. Returning to my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I go to my related list, select the creamy peanut butter. I could also edit from this related list to pop that option up here so I can stay on the same screen. We want to make the same choices. Quantity editable, quantity is 1 as a starting point. Quantity editable is true, but I will put restrictions around the quantity so the user cannot select any more than 2, but they must select at least 1. Because if the user selects 0, then it's effectively like not selecting the product. I always will put a quantity of 1 at least, because this is not saying they have to get 1. It's if you choose this option, then you must have a quantity of at least 1. And this is how we can start to control for that. Other times you might have different starting quantities like the bread, for example. If I look at white bread, we have a starting quantity of 2 because I have a top and a bottom. But you could also have different configurations of this. I like to make my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with 3 pieces of bread. That gives me 2 times the peanut butter and jelly, but only 50% more carbs because I'm using only 3 pieces of bread instead of 4. Or you might say, you know what, I'm going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but I fold mine in half. I don't eat very much, so I'm going to do 1 slice of bread, 1 scoop of peanut butter, and that's going to be it. And then I'll just put the peanut butter on the bread, fold it in half, and I'm done. And then you've completed that configuration. You can get as creative as you want with this. And one of the things I think people start to realize with the peanut butter and jelly example is that peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are not as simple as they seem at first glance. Now, let's see how that has changed things in CPQ. I'm going to exit all the way out of the quote, edit my lines, because I want to all of this to reload. That's why I fully leave the quote line editor and go back in. If you're having issues where I made this change and it's not taking an effect, when in doubt, go all the way out and then go back in. Now when I reconfigure, it still takes forever. Oh, come on.
This makes me feel better that it's not just mine that takes ages.
No, it's
Salesforce. Is it a sandbox, right? So usually it takes longer.
Sandboxes get less resources. Oh, well. So here, as you can see, my quantity is now editable for the peanut butter. I can set the quantity to 1 or I could set it to 2.
Mhm.
But if I try to set it to 3 and I save my configuration, then I get a warning. You've exceeded the maximum quantity for crunchy peanut butter. Or if I try to go under, I'll receive another error message. You've not met the quantity. We've established minimums and maximums. Very common configuration in the CPQ world, because we want to control not only what we sell, but how we sell it. And a lot of the reason that companies will choose to buy CPQ in the first place is because they lack the ability to put those controls around the products that they sell. So they end up having to either have an abundance of approval processes and extra administrative things that need to happen near the end of the sale, or they have a lot of errors downstream because something was sold that's not possible. We don't sell that anymore. You're not supposed to sell that there. You mismatched the quantities. You forgot something. All of those problems that we have in the world of sales are addressed by a lot of these configuration changes. Now, when I choose, okay, 2, and I save, we see that that updates the quantities in the bundle. But if you remember, I have 5 sandwiches. I have 10 pieces of bread, but because I have changed the configuration of the quantity, it is still proportionate to the parent, but now I've changed what that proportion is going to be. It was a 1-to-1 ratio, and now it's a 1-to-2 ratio. For every parent that I get 2 children. Now the crunchy peanut butter, as far as quantities are concerned, is behaving more like white bread and less like jelly. Whereas previously, or if I want to go back to it, I could change the quantity back to 1 and save. Now we're back to the previous ratio of 1-to-1. For every sandwich I get, I will have 1 scoop of jelly. Questions?
No, it's very clear. Appreciate
Okay.
that.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you try another bundle, but with using the type as in related product and
Sure.
accessories, so that way we can see the behavior?
All right. Let's do, I have an idea. Okay. This will start to tie in some new products with some ridiculous examples, and we're going to pull from the board, which everybody loves. Who doesn't love a good Kanban? I used to hate this. My friend invited me to Trello early on, like several years ago, and I didn't get it. Why would you do this? Why wouldn't you just use a checklist? But what I've learned since then is that this context of having my statuses across the top and then knowing where everything stands is way better than both email and a simple checklist, which doesn't give you that multi-dimensional way of thinking about what needs to get done. Anyway, we've created our peanut butter and jelly sandwich bundle. We'll go ahead and put that in the done pile. We're going to start working on 2 other ideas. Let's imagine a scenario. This is ridiculous. Let's imagine a scenario where we want to sell memberships to a peanut butter and jelly sandwich community where you can meet and interact with other peanut butter and jelly sandwich lovers. And sometimes when you're making your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you either get stuck and forget how to make it, or you run into an issue. What do I do when I run out of peanut butter? Or there's a broken jar of jelly. How do I take care of that? Well, we might offer peanut butter and jelly sandwich support for those customers. Ridiculous example, but whatever. Let's add these products. These are going to be subscription products. So we're going to start talking about subscription and pricing and proration. We'll queue that up for future sessions, but this will allow us to give the example that you're talking about, Faye. The first thing I need to do is create new product records because these are not yet in the system. If I look at my list of products, that's what I have so far. And I want some more. In my all products list, what have I done? I filtered down, I think, to Ah, yes, active product equals true. I deactivated all those power generators. We no longer sell power generators. We realized that was a bad business. And now we sell peanut butter and jelly sandwiches instead. It was a smooth transition from one business model to another. I'm going to create the peanut butter and jelly club membership first. PB&J club membership. We'll go PBJCM, active product. We'll talk through a couple of other fields as we go. As I scroll down, we still want this to be a component, but maybe not necessarily. A component will make this hidden from the product selection view. So the only way to get to a peanut butter and jelly club membership is through the peanut butter and jelly sandwich bundle. But we might make the decision in the future to change that and say, you know what? If they don't buy a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from us, that's fine. They can still join our club. We love peanut butter and jelly sandwich lovers. We're going to bring more people into the fold. It's going to be great. Product family, I still haven't established those. We could talk about those later. And also how the product family ties into core sales cloud functionality. And we can take advantage of that and some decisions that we can make. Scrolling down, I need to know how this product is priced. Specifically, I need to indicate to CPQ that this is a subscription product. I'll do a whole session sometime on these subscription fields, but for now, suffice it to say, this is a fixed price membership. It's $10 a month and $10 for 1 month. It's renewable. We'll talk more about renewals and amendments in the future, and we don't need to worry about anything else right now. All right. It's a fixed price per month. I know it's that the price book entry for this is for 1 month of subscription. And I can renew this as part of my renewal process. Now that the product record exists, I will go to the product record and add a price. Remember that we have to have an active product, an active price book, and an active price book entry to sell this in CPQ. $10 per month for this product. And save. Now let's make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich support. PB&J support. Product code is PBJS. Naming conventions are important. They're different for every business. Sometimes I've seen product codes that make no sense, and it's just a string of whatever. And other times they're totally obvious and basically the same as the product name. Depends on the business and how they run. This is also a subscription product. It will be a fixed price, but this is going to be a fixed price for 12 months. This is $10 a year for the support. In both cases, then, we have a price of $10, but the driving factor of how much this is going to cost over the course of a year is based on that subscription term that we saw on the product in the subscriptions section. In the case of the peanut butter and jelly club membership, this value of subscription term is 1. But then on the support side, it's 12. So $10 gets you a different duration depending on which product you have and how the subscription terms of the product itself relate to the subscription term of the quote. We'll talk about that later. Subscriptions is a whole can of worms, and we'll get to that in a future episode. All right, we've got our 2 products. They both exist. Right now, neither is selected as a component. So we will see both in the product selection screen, which I can test right now and show you. Add products. There we have our peanut butter and jelly sandwich and the 2 products that we just added. I could select both of these independently and add them to the quote. Great, they work. They're prorating. Currently I have a subscription term of null and a start date that is also null, I'm pretty sure. I didn't configure those, but we could talk about how those relate. But for now, I want to complete the bundle structure. We know that we can sell these on their own, but I want to sell these as part of the bundle. You might even choose to include them with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Hey, if you buy a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from us, we will include a year of support. Again, a ridiculous example, but that's how I roll. To add this to the bundle, I need to go to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Related. And let's start with our features. Remember, we want to group similar products together to make it visually appealing to the users, intuitive to understand what's going on the screen, and dare I say it, make using CPQ enjoyable. All right. Bread, peanut butter, jelly. Bread, peanut butter, jelly. Actually, let's also rename this to peanut butter here. Let's just peanut butter. That's a little better description. I feel better now. It's not the peanut butter jelly sandwich club. That's not bread, peanut butter, jelly. And then support is not bread, peanut butter, jelly. We have something new going on here. We have a different category of product. Now you could, if you wanted, you could say, add a feature that says subscriptions, or you could have it, and that includes both. You could have two different features, one that is for the membership and there's only one feature there, then you have one that's for the support, there's only one there, or you could combine them together. Those are the two basic decisions we can make here. I'm going to keep things simple and group all of my subscription products together. Subscriptions. Now, we talked about minimum and maximum quantities as they related to the product options, but here we're talking about min and max options. This says that at a minimum, you must choose at least X number of these. Maximum options is the opposite. At most, you can choose X number of these. And we're talking here about the records, not the specific units. It's like if I said the minimum options here is 0, it means you don't have to choose any subscriptions at all. If I said it was 1, it would mean you have to choose either the PB&J Club membership or PB&J support. If I said 2, even though there's only 2 options, it says you have to choose both of these. Now, if we were in that situation, we would just pre-select it for the user, make it so they can't control it, etc. But so far, our business requirement says, I want my users to have the ability to choose subscriptions, but they are not required to choose subscriptions. Fantastic. Quantity 0 in that case. That's going to show us both subscriptions and allow the user to choose or not choose those subscriptions. Additionally, we're not putting a limit on how many they can choose. Whether they want to choose 1 subscription or 2, doesn't matter. If there were more options, they could choose more options as well. Why would I stop the upsell? That seems silly. Our numbering is going to continue with the same convention. We already have 3 features. We've numbered them 10, 20, and 30. This is going to be number 40. Save. But if I numbered this 15, then visually it would appear between the bread and the peanut butter, which would look awkward. Same thing if I made it 25 and it would be between the peanut butter and the jelly. That would also be awkward. We're going to stick this at the end. We might even get to the point in the future where we have so many features and so many product options that we want to start showing a tabbed view across the top and then grouping similar features together. We'll worry about that in a future episode as well. Now that I have my subscription feature, I'm going to go back to the bundle itself and add options for these subscriptions. Take a look at what I have. The next one that I'm going to create is for the peanut butter and jelly sandwich club membership. The number, same convention. Each feature starts again at the beginning. 10. The quantity is 1. I want the user to change the quantity to whatever they want. If they buy 1 sandwich, but they want to buy 10 subscriptions, that's fine. Hell yeah, let's do that. But they don't have to buy any. I'm not going to select these or require them. Minimum quantity, I'm going to choose 1 because I want them to choose 1 at a minimum. Maximum quantity, I'll leave null. They can buy 1 million subscriptions. That would be great. Think of all the revenue we would generate if they bought 1 million subscriptions. Flipping over to the other side, what is this option that I'm configuring? This is for the Peanut Butter and Jelly Sandwich Club membership. This fits inside of the subscriptions bundle, or sorry, subscriptions feature. And here, Faye will deviate. Because I want the quantity of the peanut butter and jelly PB&J Club membership to be independent of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, remember, I might get 10 sandwiches and 1 subscription, or 1 sandwich and 10 subscriptions. We're going to change this type to accessory because I have one further requirement that I want this quantity editable, but only in the configuration screen. I don't want them changing this quantity when we get to the quote line editor. I'm not going to worry about any other fields at this time. We could talk about those in a future call. I'll save that. Our next number is 20. This is the second option in the subscriptions feature. We can find our other product, PB&J support. This is in the subscriptions feature. Quantity is 1. Quantity editable is true. It is, we'll select this by default. We haven't shown that yet. Let's select it by default because most of our customers want support. And we're going to make this easier on the seller and remove a click. I'm always looking for opportunities to remove clicks. For this, I'll choose related product. And save. Any questions so far? If not, I will keep going. I'm going to let everything reload. So I'll exit out of the quote line editor, enter back into the quote line editor, or QLE, as we'll often call it. Less syllables is easier. I reconfigure, and now I see that I have subscriptions. Fantastic. I can select one or both. Notice that there are checkboxes here, radio buttons here. That's an automatic change that happens in the UI because in this feature of bread, I have a minimum option selection of 1 and a maximum option selection of 1. CPQ automatically changes this to a radio button. Otherwise, it will be a checkbox. For this example, I want to choose both. Didn't I say that PB&J support was going to be selected by default? Did I forget that? It is selected by default. Why wasn't it selected by default? Oh, I bet it's one of those CPQ nuances. Watch this. It's probably going to be stupid. If I delete this and then I re-add the peanut butter jelly sandwich, I bet it works when I re-add it. Look at that. Damn, I'm good at this. All right. Why the hell that happened? I don't know. But let's talk about the fundamental thing that the fundamental principle that Salesforce doesn't go backwards. Remember that before I made these configuration changes, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich already existed on this quote. And Salesforce doesn't go backwards. So the system was essentially remembering what I had previously configured. And even though I made a change, I had an existing configuration, I made a change, and then I tried to modify that existing configuration. Well, the existing configuration was created before I changed something. You're going to run into this quite often in CPQ, but Salesforce in general, is that sequencing matters a lot. And knowing when you made a change is key to understanding why something isn't working or is not working as expected. In this case, I've essentially added a brand new peanut butter and jelly sandwich to my quote. Instead of modifying the existing peanut butter and jelly sandwich that was on the quote before I made the change. So this is the latest and greatest version. That's why the subscription is selected for me. But I also see, man, none of these options are selected either. That seems kind of silly, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be great if we could pre-select these options as well? Well, we can do that. Let's make that change, because if a user must select one, and they can only select one, why don't I pre-select something for them? Well, which one will I choose? I have two to choose from in each one of these. My tendency is to go with the most common choice, but that's not always the case. Most of the time, more than 50% of the time, I'll go with the most commonly sold thing. In this case, our business sells white bread, creamy peanut butter, and strawberry jelly more than anything, or grape jelly. That's the most basic 3-year-old sandwich I can think of. Okay, so white bread, creamy peanut butter, grape jelly. That's what we're going to do. Those three things. And I'll configure this so that the user doesn't have to do anything. The less things I can require of the user, the better. As I said in a previous episode, only half jokingly, anything that exists between a seller existing on this earth and them getting their full paycheck for their full commission is a massive inconvenience. Heaven forbid they do some work. I love you, sellers. Just kidding. Kind of. But I sell too, for the record. Let's go back to those options, make a quick configuration change, and adjust these. As I said, the white bread is the most commonly sold option. I will choose that automatically for the user. Creamy peanut butter is the common peanut butter choice. Select that. And then we had strawberry jelly or grape jelly. That's what grape jelly was the most common of these. All right. Take note, though, that if you have a product feature that says min-max of one option, but then you try to automatically select two things for the user and they aren't paying attention, well, now you've got two things selected where only one should be selected. They're going to get an error. Now they're frustrated. They go, this is silly. Who made this mistake? So we want to be meticulous and very careful when we're configuring these things. It is so easy to just lose track of where you are with all these different records. There are dozens of objects in CPQ, dozens more when you add building, and when you put them together, especially with advanced approvals, you've got over 100 objects in these two products. It's a lot to talk about and to think about and consider, but we got to try it. That's part of what makes this work so lucrative is it's really hard. If you want to make more money, get really, really good at a difficult and complex thing that not a lot of people know how to do. But that's a conversation for a career office hours, which I've considered starting. If that's of interest, let me know. All right, back to the peanut butter jelly sandwich. Again, I'm going to wipe this clean. I'm going to have no lines on the quote. Do a quick save. And I'm going to add the products. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Select. Oh, look at this. I've got support included, but not required. I don't have to. If I switch my jelly type, I can do that. I have control over what's going on here. I can see that this is locked until I select it, but then I can change the quantity if I choose. I can choose different types of bread, but it was all pre-selected for me, just like that. Now the users eliminated most of their requirements to click 80% of the time. This is what people buy as a sandwich. And now the only thing that I want to add is this PB&J club membership. It's new, so not a lot of people are buying it. So most common, that's part of my pre-selection criteria or one of the one of the perspectives that I'll use when determining should we select that, whether or not we should select something by default. On the flip side, sometimes I like to make it more difficult to choose the less expensive thing. A lot of times I encourage clients to automatically select the more expensive option to encourage the upsell. The user still has control. They still have the ability to pick a less expensive option if that's what's a better fit for their customer. But I don't want to encourage a downsell. I want to encourage the upsell. I want to make it easy to sell. I want to make it easy to sell more. I want it to easy to sell at higher price points. I want it easy to sell with no discounts. And I want to make it harder to do the opposite of those things. If you want to decrease deal sizes, have massive discounts that eat away at our margins, etc., I want to make that more painful than selling something really expensive and lots of it. Oh, I forgot my configuration change that I was going to make. Okay. PB&J sandwich, I've got the quantity as 1. If I change this, this is where the independence comes in. Let's change this to 10. Even though I've changed it to 10, if you remember, the PB&J Club membership is now an accessory. I cannot change the quantity from the quote line editor screen. I can only change it during the configuration process. Now it's locked. Okay. On top of that, I can change the quantity of PB&J support. Did I make that a related product? Did I make a configuration change that was, oh, look at that. Thank you, past self. I made a configuration change that I forgot I made. Or maybe that's the default value. Huh. Funny how that works. Okay. Anyway, if I change this to 10 and I hit calculate, the quantities update for everything except this one. Because I have said, for whatever reason, the only place you can change the quantity of the PB&J Club memberships is in configuration. That's what an accessory does. The first 3 are components. Their quantity was established in configuration, the ratio between the children and the parents, and therefore, in the quote line editor screen, when I change the quantity of the parent, the children change too, by the same proportion that was established during configuration. But because the PB&J Club membership is an accessory, its quantity functions independently. And also because it's an accessory, its quantity is changeable only during configuration. The PB&J support we saw also did not change. That is similar to the accessory, except with support, I can change the quantity in the quote line editor screen because it is a related product. I can change the quantity here, or I can change the quantity in the configuration screen, but not both. The more I think about this, though, I don't really like this configuration because a customer is really only going to get general support. It has nothing to do with the PB&J sandwich. And I want to make the quantity not editable. If you get support, you only get one quantity, and I don't want the rep changing that. And with the PB&J Club membership, I no longer want to require them to go back in. Let's make that change really quick. For support, we're changing this to an accessory, and I will make the quantity editable as false. It is still selected by default. The user has selected it by default. The quantity is not changeable, so if they don't want support, they just deselect the option. They don't change the quantity to 0. It's an accessory, which means that no matter how many PB&J sandwiches I sell, this support quantity will remain 1. Making the opposite changes to the PB&J Club membership, I want this to be a related product, so I can edit its quantity in either configuration or in the quote line editor screen. I still don't want it selected, and I do want the quantity editable. Now I save. Now remember, I had started configuring a bundle, I configured it, but I just made a change, which means I need to start over, so I bring in all of the new values, because this configuration that we're looking at right now is old. It's out of date. We need a new version. Delete, add, select, configure. I'll leave it as this here. I could change my quantity here. Quantity is locked down there now because I turned quantity editable to false. Let's change quantity to 5. I save. Just kidding. I want my quantity to be 6. Calculate. There we go. I can change the quantity of the PB&J Club membership in both locations. Subscription with, let's check our work here on the PB&J Club. PB&J support, quantity 10. This quantity should stay the same, and so should the PB&J Club membership. Independence, dependence, proportion or independent functioning of the quantities, and then where can I change the quantity? In configuration only or configuration and the quote line editor. And that is about all the time that we have for this week. I have a call about a client coming up here in a second, in a few minutes. Are there any other questions about this before we end this week's call?
No questions. From my understanding is the component, if we choose component, is proportional to the bundle. If we choose related, is actually you can't change.
It's independent, so it could be
It's
any
independent.
quantity.
Okay, and what about accessories? You can't change a quantity.
It can be any quantity, but the only place you can change the quantity is in the configuration screen.
Got it.
Yep.
Thanks for the verification.
Component and accessory apply only to the product options in the configuration screen. Related product applies there and to the quote lines in the quote line editor screen. We're dealing with different objects in both of these screens. Quote lines in the quote line editor screen here, product options in the previous screen. So that we're transitioning objects when we go from configuration into the pricing piece. Anything else?
Right. Thank you so much for your time.
Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you for joining. I will get this uploaded so you can watch it later if you want to, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, John. Thank you.